Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of our Range Marketing Fireside Chats. With me, as always, Spencer Rubik, the CEO and president here of Range Marketing. And with us today again for our fourth episode is Mark Wallace, one of our very great sales associates here at Range Marketing. And before we kick things off for today's Fireside Chat, I wanted to pass it over to Mark, let him introduce our guest for today's podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. So we have a very special guest on today. Julie is the CEO of Onward Content, which is one of the leading video and content manufacturing companies for dispensaries and cannabis brands. Really next level, working together with different content management companies and dispensaries across the country, really within every legal state. And she's built an incredible business and provides so much high level content value that it made just absolute common sense for Range Marketing to focus on building a partnership with her and her company. So really excited to have her on here today and learn a little bit more about how she got started in the industry.
Thanks, Mark. The CEO sounds very lofty. I'm also the janitor.
You'd be surprised what I do at the office after hours. I'm sweeping the floors too. So
right, I do everything. I'm a one-woman show, so
there we
go. You can call me the CEO, but I do everything.
Yeah.
So Julie, part of the reason we brought you on today, obviously, is to highlight sort of what you're doing for the cannabis industry as a whole. Who it is that you're helping. I know Mark kind of touched on, a focus on some of these retailers, which, frankly, as we go through the podcast today, I think a lot of us will be talking a lot about the limited opportunities that retailers have to make an impression, to sort of boost and promote their brands in an industry that, for the most part, is being shut off or being blocked by a lot of the other traditional marketing and branding methods that every other small and large and medium business in between has the abilities and the avenues to utilize, where cannabis is very, very restrictive on the ways they can promote and grow their business. So with that said, where do you, sort of integrate yourself, your company into the industry, and where do you find yourself, your company going as the industry grows with the growing regulations? And obviously we're so much at the baseline of this industry on where it's going to go and the markets that it's going to be available. And hopefully, we'll be talking in a year or two about the federal deregulation of this product across the country, and more integration into smaller communities. So talk a little bit about, what got you in the cannabis industry, and where you see it going.
Sure. Well, I actually started in 2014, right when adult use became legal in Colorado. And I kind of showed up at the right time and got involved in the women's networking organization, Women Grow. And I handled a lot of their member services and did kind of their initial raise. And that's really where I got to meet everybody. And it was kind of a perfect opportunity because I got to meet all of the players and kind of understand where I can fit in as a business owner. And I got started in 2016, also the same year that I got pregnant. And I spent my pregnancy building the company, and 6 weeks after my son was born, I closed my first big deal. And I gotta tell you, I don't recommend doing it that way, but I think I had the right amount of tenacity and naivete to just go for it. So I did that, and I've been doing it since 2016. The business is the same age as my son, which is always easy to remember.
Yeah.
And really, I saw the opportunity because here in Colorado, everybody was talking about education, but no one was actually creating that education. There were a handful of campaigns that were also created by Colorado Department of Health, but they really weren't. The industry definitely applauded the efforts, but the industry itself wanted to create a lot more compelling content. So I just saw the opportunity by walking into these dispensaries and seeing Netflix running on the waiting room TV, and I was like, I know how to make content. My background was in advertising and animation and design, so I was like, I'll make this content. So I basically have a library of videos that I white label and license. If you walk into any of my clients' dispensaries, it looks like they've made all the content. So I'm really just their content partner. And then I create all of their custom content along with that. And then all of that content can run on their online and for social media as well. And really, like you said, we don't have a lot of advertising opportunities. You're locked out of like traditional avenues. So content is your marketing strategy. Like if you want to actually convert customers from online, you need quality content. And luckily,
Absolutely.
people are searching for it. People want reliable content. And I'm just the video portion, but I collaborate with all of the different players within that, you guys being one of them, obviously SEO, but also anybody who writes content, social media strategists, content strategists, because that has to be your number one marketing strategy. So it also has to be quality content. You know,
Right.
People want to be able to relate to the information. So that's kind of like quick nutshell of like how I got started and what I do and how I see the value in it. Because at the end of the day, I always say like an educated customer is a loyal customer. Somebody who's going to you for content and information is going to come to you for your products as well. So just makes sense to sort of close that loop and be able to drive sales with the content.
Absolutely, Julie. And when we talked when I was in Denver, we had a conversation, and you relayed a lot of this information to me. I thought it was amazing, how you integrated yourself in the industry and really found that gap that was missing, as far as in dispensary content. And I guess for you, has it been on the growth side of your business? Has it been referrals? Has it been continuous networking? Talking a little bit about the cannabis industry itself and how that unfolds as you grow, right? It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do in the world, but if you don't mind just sharing, how you grew your business in the cannabis industry.
Sure. I mean, I was really lucky in that I handled member services for Win and Grow.
Yeah.
So those were the first people I reached out to, and a lot of them are still my clients. So I tapped into that network first. Referrals have been huge because at the end of the day, cold calling is expensive. It works. I have plenty of clients by cold calling, but it's an expensive process. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. And I'm always looking at the data around that, and was averaging like 26 touch points on a cold call lead. Where if I had a referral, that was a lot different. And I've really built the business on basically like strategic business partnerships, like with Range, where I see myself, because I am one person. I am one woman that makes all this content and manages everything. And I live by the business philosophy that overhead is death. So I hire contractors. I don't have employees. I run the business really lean, and that means that also not hiring a salesperson. So what I've done is I've built this, what I call almost just like a business ecosystem, where I've looked at all the players that are also talking to my prospective clients. And in most cases, I integrate seamlessly with what they're doing. So like with you guys, any like website content, I work with Spring Big, and I work with some of the other like menu companies that are all talking to everyone. And in all of those situations, like they also need content. So it's mutually beneficial. And I work with a lot of consultants as well, because they're the ones writing the applications. So it's like, once you get in with those people, like they get the license, you're pretty much ready to go. Yeah. So I've built it all really just focusing on this like ecosystem, and but I still do some cold calling because it does work. But yeah, that's really like the best way to run any business. I mean, you need to hit your prospects from multiple angles, and like I said, I have to do it very strategically because I'm also a mom. And I don't have a lot of time. So anything that I do job has to be incredibly efficient and cut to the chase. So I certainly made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot in the beginning, but now my laser focus is putting these strategic partnerships in place.
Yeah, and I would think that just from our perspective, and after hearing that from you, I would say that, we kind of came to the same conclusion over time. We obviously already had, since 2015, some of the largest dispensaries in the country up in San Francisco, and really focused on it, refocused in 2018 on growing that channel and growing that part of our business, because the ROI for dispensaries, as you know, is ridiculous, right? And our services just kind of fit perfectly in that space. And we learned the same thing as of recent, is really having good partnerships. This industry is a connections-based industry. It's really who you know. There's a lot of companies out there that are non-cannabis companies that are trying to always get into the cannabis space. And I'll tell you, when we're at trade shows, I can't tell you how many times, Mark, Nate, you could probably testify, where these other companies would come in that do, social media ads, anything but SEO, and they'd really try to kind of follow our tail to get into those connections, right? Because that's where they know it is too. It's all of who you know. And so being a credible source, being someone that you can refer somebody to confidently that they're going to do a good job, is a huge part of that referral connection. So I really appreciate what you said in regards to, having that ecosystem, because we have the same philosophy here.
Exactly.
Right.
And I will say too, Julie, one of the things that really kind of resonated and why, it's been so exciting since January, really, really more so December when we first met in Vegas, but building this relationship between us, building the friendship, and also building the business relationship between Range and Onward Content. It's fun because we're able to bring such high level value between our two services to the end client. And that's really what it's all about, because as you and I have discussed many times, this industry and these clients in particular are so limited as far as what they can do from a marketing standpoint. It's unlike anything else in a marketing sense. So when it comes to high level quality content and being found and generating leads for these businesses to grow their company, grow their revenue, grow their traffic, putting those two things together to create an all-encompassing experience, that there's nothing else like it. So kind of piggyback off of that, I'd love to hear what, from your direct interaction with dispensaries, what they're asking for from a content standpoint. What do they want? And also, what do you know from your expertise do they need?
So, number one, they need effective content. They need content that converts. I've worked in video production and advertising for years, and the content creation component is one small piece of it. This is why you need SEO, you need content strategy, you need a social media strategy, you need media buy strategy. If you just hire me or use the content and just throw it somewhere and it's not part of a bigger marketing strategy, it's going to fall short. So when I talk about effective content, one, I'm looking at data. I'm seeing what videos have the most watch through, the most engagement, and it's always ones with people in it. So anytime that we can incorporate anyone, my testimonial videos, they get the highest engagement rates, but also strategically using that content to drive sales. So that has to do with website navigation and making sure that they are going from a piece of content to an online menu. They're going from a piece of content to, directions to get to the dispensary. The content is just one component of a bigger system that can drive sales. So
what we call that on our side, in the marketing sense, we call that, in a greater sense, click funneling, essentially, right? Where what you're really doing is you're engaging people from a content aspect to engage to the next level, right? So the piece that you come in is vital. It's vital for the transition from a potential consumer to someone actually purchasing a product. What we do on our side is getting people to see that content. And so that's really where there's a nice mesh there, that you really are that bridge between, we're getting people to see the content, we're getting online visibility, online traffic, and then in-store on the site, that secondary piece, you bridge that gap to conversion. And I think that's really important, just to notify. I think it's huge.
And to build off that, and Julie, I think you grazed over this, but I think this is maybe the most interesting part of how I think dispensary owners should view content. Because, I think all of us, we've been in this industry long enough to know that, it can be difficult to educate a dispensary owner on why having good, thoughtful content, not only on their website, but in their stores and every opportunity, and viewing it and training the dispenser owner to view content as an investable strategy, that this is not you spending money. And I think this is the most important thing about these types of collaborations with companies like you and Range, and you mentioned Spring Big and I Heart Jane, and these companies that have a very similar vision. Their goal at the end of the day is to help the customer, but in very different ways, right? But Julie, viewing content as assets, you mentioned the word overhead, and how that really truly is got to be one of the most anxiety-filled aspects of owning a dispensary, is knowing that your dispensary is going to cost 5 times more for rent than any other business that would occupy that same building because of what you do and how you do it. So because of that, it's hard for dispensary owners. They've almost been hardened to believe everything becomes an expense, that everyone is always out to take everything they can get from a dispensary owner, when in reality, companies like Onward Content, companies like Range Marketing, we're giving dispensary owners the ability to invest in their success, their future success, their growth potential. And it's funny to think about how something as simple as content and like SEO, content is just this big umbrella term. And there's so many different things that branch off from content or from SEO. But in reality, Julie, what we're asking the customer to do is not to spend money with us, but to invest in their future success. And I think that's really such an interesting aspect to what we do and what we bring to the table. But talk a little bit about how difficult it can be to change the mindset, the way that these dispensary owners think about how they spend their money, because at the end of the day, there are two ways to spend your money. You spend it on expenses, which is overhead, which is rent, which is, security. Those are expenses. What we are offering dispensary owners is investment opportunities, but investments into their own company.
Yeah. Well, first I wave a magic wand and I say, come on, guys. In most cases, they see the value of education because that is incredibly important to ensure a positive experience with the products. Like, I don't know about you, but I have had plenty of edibles experiences where I've been like, whoops, went too far down that road. One
too many that time.
And it's fun for me, but for somebody who might be brand new, that's going to
not so much of a fun time. Yeah.
Not a fun time at all. So, I talk a lot about preparing the consumer or patient for understanding the effects, how to get the desired effect, and then also how to make sure that you have a positive experience. So I think that definitely clicks in a lot of dispensary owners' minds because they know that if somebody has a positive experience with their product, they're going to come back.
Yeah.
So making sure that they really understand how this all works. And then on the bud tender side of things, they are the frontline sales force. So training them and educating them is also a huge part of really employee onboarding, and also, again, ensuring that the bud tenders are communicating the right information to the patients and consumers. So I do a lot of bud tender training content, and a lot of the content that's running in store, I hear all the time from clients, it's our bud tenders are basically getting training right in front of them because it's playing in the waiting room or it's playing in front of them. They know what it is. And then I'm also pushing all of the promos. So the bud tenders are basically watching their script day in and day out because they see, okay, we've got a promo, we've got sales on this, we've got I'm learning about this new study that's coming out. So from a sales perspective, talking about education as a sales tool usually clicks.
Yeah.
Because you can directly see sales lifts not only when you're training the customer that there's new products or new information out there, you're also training the sales staff, which are the bud tenders.
Yeah, and I think that's super important too, because from our case, and often, and just not even in the cannabis industry, but many industries, we track data, right? So we can see a 5,000% growth in-store traffic. We know that real time. I can see within the last 30 days, 100% more people went to your store than they ever have before. And sometimes they ask the question, whether it's a retailer or a service company, how are the sales? Are the sales increasing, or what's going on? And sometimes they get the response, not often, but sometimes they get the response, it's there. I think I need new people or maybe better training. Exhibit A. That's what it is. I know the traffic's up. There's something on the sales side there that has to happen. So that conversation that you just brought up is continual, and I think it's part of the industry that needs a lot of focus overall.
From the brand side of things, I do a lot of budtender training content, and I also have partnerships with like other learning management systems and stuff, because at the end of the day, the budtenders are the frontline salespeople. Like if they don't like your product or they've never tried your product, forget it. Like you have to, like from a brand perspective, and I hear this over and over and over again from brands, their number one investment is budtender training and budtender education, because that is where they can make the biggest sales difference. There's definitely, I've done plenty of content that is ad focused or brand focused or testimonial focused. And again, coming into the conversation of like how that fits into their bigger marketing strategy is also an effective way of doing it. But the like direct communication with the frontline salespeople who are interacting with the patients and customers is always going to be effective.
Absolutely. And I think there's also something to be said, Julie, about the educational content piece in conjunction with what we do from an SEO standpoint. We see, just what Spencer mentioned, how we can track the data, we can track what people are searching for and what is driving the traffic from a ranking standpoint, what we have people, our dispensary clients populating for. We can track the data of how much traffic growth is coming to their website based on that, based on our campaigns. We see so often that the clients who have usually working with someone like you who can really create very meaningful, valuable educational content that we build into the websites, that is so important because yes, dispensary near me, dispensary in San Francisco, these are highly searched terms that when we get you ranking at the top for those, yes, we're going to drastically change your business. However, we also want to make sure that our clients are ranking for educational terms and educational search phrases, because especially in newer markets where there's still taboo, there's still not a lot of education in the marketplace. We need to have someone like you that is building this content that is very educational focused for us to build an educational based campaign for the clients. Because if we can drive traffic to our clients based on what people are searching for on an education standpoint, then everyone wins. We're changing the complete framework of that marketplace and the education around it.
And then to your point, Mark, then we know what people are searching for, so you can be even more strategic. So it's not just sort of like throwing a bunch of videos up or throwing a bunch of blog content up. You can be like, okay, Missouri is a brand new market. What are they looking for there? They're probably looking for like 101 basic stuff. Well, let's look at the data and see what they are looking for, and write the content and push the video content that is relevant. And yeah, data is critical. It's like you're flying blind without it. And that's why I'm always looking at engagement rates and watch through rates and what videos convert. So I mean, you have to do that. Otherwise it's like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall.
Hopefully
Yeah, and listen, to wrap things up here, Julie, one of the final things that I know a lot of us wanted to sort of get your overall thoughts on when talking about we did focus a lot of our efforts and our energy on this podcast talking about from the lens of the dispensary owner. Finally, though, I do kind of want to bring it back to who I think we would all agree is the actual important part to success as a whole for the industry, and it is the consumer. And I think, you brushed on a point that I think is really important about the education of the consumer and what role, dispensary owners and dispensaries and retailers as a whole, really should take and take, I think personally, is educating the customer so that they can have an enjoyable experience. It starts with us because we're the ones formulating the messages, right? But the people really disseminating the message that can really make the difference between someone's first experience being really great in cannabis or not. And I think this part of this discussion goes back to how the CBD industry started, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the medical use of CBD and how it can really be effective for for consumers. And I think the main part of the reason I think Family Video selling your average everyday topical CBD is fine and funny, and it's kind of a running joke, but at the same time it almost waters down the true medical uses when a guy at Family Video can't really describe to you which product you should be using for your given issue. It starts to really it becomes a larger overarching issue of consumer education and why someone might choose one product for whatever their medical diagnosis might be versus another. So talk a little bit about I know the responsibility that we have, but it's really that responsibility falls on the owners and the bud tenders, to your point, to disseminate that information to consumers so that when it's their first opportunity to, and maybe these are people that have had a foo-foo or the cannabis or pot or weed has been something that they have looked negatively on. And it's our job, it's the job of these dispensary owners to champion not only themselves, their brands and the products they sell, but the industry as a whole, so that this industry can take the collective steps it needs to take to become far more acceptable and widely acceptable across the country.
Right. First of all, you guys have Family Video. That's still a thing.
Yeah, we still got it. Yeah, we still got it.
Okay.
We also have phone books.
Redbox. There's a real Family Video in New York.
We still have phone books in Buffalo, Julie. So I just want you to know that we are a little bit behind the times, but yes, we still have Family Video, and they still sell VHS tapes.
No way. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Julie, I'm parking my horse and buggy right now, just
Okay. Cool. Good. Yeah, so I got distracted by the Family Video thing because I thought it was too funny. I think your question was, okay, well, actually, it really is the marijuana's, and I'm using the word marijuana as like THC industry versus CBD industry. First of all, the regulations are a lot different. So you have to be really careful about how you talk about it. So a lot of the content that I create is in this kind of like ambiguous language because you actually can't make any medical claims. Whereas like CBD companies technically can't either, but they're doing it anyway. So I use studies that suggest things. I film a lot of testimonial content, which kind of circumvents that, and just have someone talk about their experience with it. That content is really effective. And you're right, it is a responsibility of the entire industry to portray this in a responsible way. And I do a ton of responsible consumption videos. So whether it has to do with the local laws and regulations, purchasing limitations, all that kind of stuff. And I do a lot of corporate social responsibility content because a lot of these companies, as part of their marketing strategy, have to communicate how they are a good neighbor. Because especially in newer markets, if they're coming into an area where it might be a little bit more conservative, they're not educated on it, having content where they talk about how they've impacted their local community is going to help them get the license. So,
interesting.
I mean, a lot of these businesses come at it not only from the educational perspective, but also just strictly from like that they're good people and they're good community members. And that kind of content gets played before city councils and regulators and showing, hey, look, we're helping the local homeless community. We're helping veterans. Like we do volunteer programs. And I see that as, and the thing is like these programs are actually wildly successful amongst the employees. They really enjoy that. And it's just one more piece of content that they can communicate, demonstrating that they are good community members and good people. And that just fits in with the entire like ecosystem of educational content, period. So yeah, I mean, you have to communicate as a marijuana brand so many more ways than any other brand has to. Like you basically have to come out of the gate saying, we're not scumbags. projects and go above and beyond. And they do. I mean, I know so many clients that invest a ton of money and a ton of time and effort into their local communities because they want to promote the good neighbor philosophy, but also they want to be part of the community. They are businesses. They pay an insane tax rate. They want the community to know that they're part of it. And I think educational content plays a huge role in that.
All right, Julie, thank you so much for joining us here for our Range Marketing Fireside Chat. We really appreciate all of the hard work, what you bring to the industry from an education and maybe more importantly, a human element, because at the end of the day, you know, I think the most important thing that all of us can keep in mind at all times is that, you know, this is a very human business. And, you know, there are families, there are, you know, livelihoods at stake for the success of our clients. And, you know, with in conjunction with Onward Content and Range Marketing, that's, you know, that's what we're most concerned about is what we bring to the industry that's helping not only move it from a cultural and economical standpoint, but also from an interpersonal standpoint. This is all very relationship based. So we really appreciate the contributions that you continue to make to not only the industry, but for all of their help with us as well. And I'm really looking forward to a partnership that continues and hopefully we can take this industry by storm and sort of bring these owners to a place that they can feel good about what they're doing for the community, for themselves and their families. So we really appreciate it, Julie. So thanks for everyone for listening to our Range Marketing Fireside Chat episode 4 here with Julie from Onward Content.
Thank you.